Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving deep into a passage about two powerful philosophical ideas, existentialism and essentialism. But don't worry, we'll take it step by step. First, I'll read through the passage, highlighting key points and breaking it down. Then we'll tackle the questions together. I'll show you exactly where to find the answers in the text, explain why they're correct, and even talk about why some wrong answers might seem tempting. Let's get started. Essentialism, a dichotomy that reflects a profound philosophical schism regarding the nature and meaning of being. Right from the first sentence, we know this passage is about two opposing ideas, existentialism and essentialism. And it's not just a small disagreement, it's described as a profound philosophical schism. That means these ideas are deeply different, especially in how they define the meaning of life. Existentialists such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir argue that existence precedes essence, asserting that individuals are not born with a predetermined essence, but rather define themselves through actions and choices. Let's highlight this phrase. Existence precedes essence. This is the heart of existentialism. Sartre and de Beauvoir believe we're not born with a set identity or purpose. Instead, we create who we are through our actions and choices. This assertion places a hefty burden of responsibility on individuals, rendering them condemned to be free, as Sartre famously articulated. Condemned to be free. That's a heavy statement. Sartre is saying that because we have the freedom to choose who we become, we also carry the responsibility for those choices. That freedom isn't just liberating. It can be a burden. In contrast, essentialist theories posit that human beings possess an intrinsic essence, a set of traits, characteristics, or purposes that define what it means to be human. Now we switch to essentialism. Essentialists believe that people are born with an intrinsic essence, traits or purposes that define them from the start. So, while existentialists say we create our identity, essentialists argue that it's built in. For example, Aristotle's notion of telos suggests that every entity in the universe, including human beings, has an inherent purpose that guides its development and fulfillment. Telos is a key term here. Aristotle believed that everything, plants, animals, people, has a purpose or a telos that guides its growth. Like how an acorn grows into an oak tree, people have a natural direction or purpose they're meant to fulfill. This teleological perspective offers a contrasting and often comforting narrative that imbues human life with meaning and direction, suggesting that through life's complexities, thus facilitating a sense of belonging and purpose. Here's something interesting. The passage says essentialism can be comforting. Why? Because if you believe you have an inherent purpose, it gives your life a clear direction. It's like having a roadmap. Yet this perspective faces criticism for potentially undermining the diversity of human experiences, as it risks attempting to pigeonhole the multifaceted nature of humanity into restrictive categories. But essentialism isn't without its problems. The passage critiques it for potentially pigeonholing people, trying to fit everyone into neat categories. But human experiences are complex, and essentialism might oversimplify that complexity. At the heart of this philosophical discourse lies the question of authenticity. Now we're getting into a central theme, authenticity. This idea is super important to existentialism. It's about living a life that's true to yourself. Existentialists advocate for an authentic life characterized by self-awareness and conscious decision-making, wherein one acknowledges and embraces the weight of their freedom. In contrast, essentialism, by asserting fixed identities, may inadvertently promote conformity, stifling individual expression in the pursuit of an overarching human essence. Here's another critique of essentialism. It might promote conformity. If people believe they have a fixed identity or purpose, they might feel pressured to fit in, instead of expressing who they really are. Now the passage connects these ideas to society. It's not just about philosophy, it's about how culture influences our sense of identity. Should we accept these narratives, or push back against them? Ultimately, the dialogue between existentialism and essentialism invites a critical examination of how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. This is the central thesis of the passage. It's not just about which philosophy is right or wrong. It's about examining how these ideas influence how we define ourselves. It challenges us to consider, do we define our own essence through our actions, or is there an inherent nature that shapes who we are destined to become? This is the big question. Are we self-made, or is our destiny already built into who we are? And we're back to authenticity. What does it really mean to live a life that's true to ourselves in the face of these competing ideas? Alright, now that we've read through the passage and highlighted the key ideas, let's dive into the questions. I'll walk you through how to find the answers in the text, explain why the right answer is correct, and why the others aren't. Let's get started with question 1. Let's break this down. We're looking for the central thesis, the main point the passage is trying to make. Where do we usually find that? Right at the end of the passage. Let's go back to the conclusion. This sentence tells us that the passage is about the tension between existentialism and essentialism, and how they offer different ways to define human existence and authenticity. So, option 2 is the correct answer. Why not option 1? It says existentialism offers a more comforting framework, but if you remember, the passage actually says essentialism might be more comforting because it gives life direction. Option 3. It says essentialism completely undermines individual freedom, but the passage doesn't go that far. It critiques essentialism, but doesn't say it totally destroys freedom. Option 4. It suggests inherent human essence is universally accepted, but that's not true. Existentialists reject that idea entirely. Let's think about what the passage said about freedom. Remember Sartre's phrase, condemned to be free? Let's find that in the text. Existentialists see freedom as a burden. It's not always a happy or easy thing. It can lead to alienation or feelings of absurdity. So, the correct answer is option 2. Existentialists believe that freedom can lead to feelings of alienation and absurdity. Why not option 1? It says individuals are always happy with their freedom, but the passage clearly shows that freedom can be overwhelming, not just joyful. Option 3. It says defining one's essence negates freedom, but existentialists believe defining your own essence is freedom. Option 4. It suggests a predetermined path, but that's exactly what existentialists reject. Alright, this question is directly asking about Sartre's phrase, condemned to be free. We saw this phrase earlier when discussing existentialism. Let's find that in the passage. The key here is that existence precedes essence, and because of that, we are responsible for creating meaning in our lives. That's exactly what Sartre was getting at. So, the correct answer is option 4. Existence precedes essence, placing the responsibility for meaning on the individual. Why not option 1? That talks about having an intrinsic essence, but existentialists reject that idea entirely. Option 2. While it's true that freedom can bring alienation and absurdity, that's not the full implication of condemned to be free. This phrase is more about the responsibility tied to freedom. Option 3. That suggests a universal purpose guiding us, which is more of an essentialist idea, not existentialist. For tone questions, we need to think about how the author is presenting the information. Are they biased, critical, or more neutral and thoughtful? The author isn't taking sides here. They're exploring both viewpoints, pointing out strengths and weaknesses, but not dismissing either one. That's a reflective and analytical tone. So, the correct answer is option 3, reflective and analytical regarding personal and philosophical identity. Why not option 1? The author isn't cynical. They're examining ideas thoughtfully. Option 2? The author isn't overly hopeful about inherent purpose. They critique essentialism for being restrictive. Option 4? The author isn't dismissive of traditional philosophies. They give both existentialism and essentialism fair consideration. Let's think about how the author structured this passage. Did they just list facts, focus on one side, or compare both? The author contrasts existentialism and essentialism throughout the passage, showing how they differ and how each affects individuality and purpose. So, the correct answer is option 2. By contrasting existentialist and essentialist perspectives while exploring their implications for individuality and purpose. Why not option 1? The passage isn't just listing historical examples, it's comparing ideas. Option 3. There's no chronological order here. The author focuses on themes, not history. Option 4. The author isn't just advocating for existentialism, they're presenting both sides thoughtfully. Let's find the section that talks about authenticity. Remember, existentialism is big on living an authentic life. This paragraph focuses on how existentialists view authenticity, living with self-awareness, and embracing freedom. So, the correct answer is option 4. It highlights the existentialist's position on the importance of self-awareness and freedom in life. Why not option 1? The paragraph doesn't give a definitive solution to the debate, it just presents existentialist ideas. Option 2? While there's a critique of essentialism in the passage, this paragraph is focused on existentialism, not essentialism. Option 3. It doesn't argue that existentialism is more fulfilling, it just explains how existentialists view authenticity. For this question, we need to think about the core beliefs that the passage assumes about existentialism and essentialism. What's at the heart of existentialism? Existentialism is all about the idea that we are responsible for creating our own meaning. So, the correct answer is option 3. Existentialists believe that individuals are responsible for creating their own meaning in life. Why not option 1? Existentialism doesn't encourage conformity. It encourages authenticity and individuality. Option 2. Essentialism doesn't deny personal choice outright. It suggests people have inherent traits, but that doesn't mean they have no freedom. Option 4. The passage critiques the teleological perspective for oversimplifying human experiences, but it doesn't say all experiences can be universally categorized. And that's a wrap. We've read through the passage, highlighted the key points, and tackled all 7 questions. Remember, when you're approaching passages like this, focus on the big ideas, like freedom, authenticity, and how these philosophies affect our understanding of identity. And don't just look for the right answer. Think about why the other choices don't fit. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.